And for the last panel discussion for the day, the topic is the crucial role of CFOs in managing business crisis and turnarounds. For this, I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Niraj Agarwal, CFO, Centro and Fashion Factory, Reliance Retail. Mr. Niraj is a professionally qualified CA, CS and DIP in FIRS with over 18 years of experience in working in various industries including retail, telecom and BPO. He is currently working in Reliance Retail as CFO for Centro and Fashion Factory and is a member of core management team responsible for the company's strategy, growth, inventory optimization and execution. He has been instrumental in the transitioning of future group business into Reliance and formation of Center of Excellence in Future Lifestyle. He has been recognized among the top 50 employees in Reliance Retail within 1 year of his joining and also has been recognized as a star performance in Reliance Retail as the go-to person for all the problems and his interpersonal skills in managing all stakeholders. Niraj loves traveling, running, marathon, playing chess, networking and writing LinkedIn posts. With this, I would also request to join us the fellow panelist, Mr. Piyush Dhandharia, Director Finance, IQVIA, Mr. Debnath Mukhopadhyay, CFO, Trualt Bioenergy, Mr. Mayank Bhotika, CFO, Manipal Technologies Limited, Mr. Prashant Hegde, CFO, Colliers, Mr. Vinayak Hegde, Finance Controller, Arvind Fashion Limited, Ms. Ramani Dathi, CFO, TeamLease Service Limited, and Mr. Mukesh Hamirwasia, CFO, WENDT India Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause for all the panelists and the moderator?
Thank you for a lovely introduction. So, we all know about Rishabh Pant, right? What he has gone through in the last 2 years, where he was about to end his life because of that fatal car accident, and what he is today. People cannot believe that he even went through that accident. So what was the thing which has drove him to come back to his normalcy? It is his sheer drive and commitment which has led, and his self-belief which has brought him here. Similarly, if you take an example of the COVID times, okay, when the stock market was at its bottom, now we see the stock market reviving and it almost hits its all-time high every month. What it leads to, it is because of its strong fundamentals. And finally, we are into an IT city. Let's talk about Infosys. So when we talk about the founder, the relationship which they carry is based on the collaboration and also commitment. So according to me, there are 4 key parameters or 4 key pillars which leads to managing crisis. So one is the self-belief, the second is the commitment, the third is the strong fundamentals, and finally the collaboration and the business partnering. If these 4 virtues are there, nothing is impossible and anybody who hits the rock bottom can blow up. So with these thoughts, I would like to introduce my panel, my lovely panel, and I will bring the set of questionnaires and discuss with them. Thank you. So my first question goes to Mr. Mayank. So what are the primary responsibilities and challenges faced by the CFOs when managing the crisis and the turnaround?
Thank you. Just taking forward from where Niraj left. I conclude what Niraj mentioned. Predominantly, I believe that in terms of crisis management, crisis could be because of multitude of factors. So it could be a crisis which is within the company. It could be something which has to do with an industry, particular industry. It could also go further to a global crisis, like for example, pandemic. There are other situations in today's day and age, like for example, if there's a tech innovation that can sometimes the company has to reinvent the model, and that can also be a crisis. But whichever crisis we are speaking about, technically if you ask me, the CFO has, according to me, 5 key areas where they need to focus on, okay? Firstly, of course, I think the most important factor is as we all know, people come first. So what essentially it means is that whenever a company is going through a crisis, the fundamental is, and the background or the backbone of any organization is the people, basically, correct? So from that perspective, it is very important, CFO as well as the top management, to basically understand how to manage the stakeholder relationship at that particular juncture. So whether it is basically dealing with external counterparts or internal counterparts, whether it is dealing with the, you can say, the management as well as the, you can say, the field force or the sales force within the organization. So people first attitude should be there, because not only that is human, but that is practical at that particular point of time. So that's one. Second aspect, I believe, is once you have people, you have a sense as to how to manage the key stakeholders. The second thing important would be that the CFO should have a practical understanding about the business viability at that point. And that business viability should lead to short-term as well as medium-term financial outcomes. So what I mean is that the CFO's role, as we all know, it's just not finance now. It's obviously moved into business partnering also. So which is why it is more relevant in a crisis scenario that the CFO basically dwells down in the entire value chain of the organization. So which it means that whether it is the sales, marketing, ops, you can say supply chain for that matter. So one has to basically get into the details with them, understand their bottlenecks, maybe reinvent the wheel, reinvent the business model, and then have a clear idea roadmap in terms of financial outcomes. So that is the key strategies. Secondly, the third bit comes is, once you have laid down these two pillars, the third is to ensure that there is a liquidity management at that point of time. So basically that means that there should be a liquidity, there should be a buffer which is there to manage the situation on ground. So it could be either you renegotiate terms with existing lenders, you have a cash reserve, or you basically renegotiate contracts or credit lines with your lenders or customers, as the case would be. The fourth aspect would be in terms of as we move towards, now that we have liquidity, it is important that there is and the CFO is seeing that there is trends where the crisis is basically mellowing down, and there is again the business is taking over. So at that point of time, it is important to again look at margin management. So what I mean is, obviously there has to be a cash forecast, which could, I mean, we have all read about the 13-week cash forecast, which is very popular in the corporate world. So if you are seeing basis the cash forecast, that now that the business is basically again strengthening, at that point of time, someone has to, the CFO has to ensure that again the margins which have got compromised earlier is back on track because of the reinventing the wheel or changing the business model or whatever strategies the CFOs has undertaken at this point of time. And the last piece would be things like once this is all four is taken care, basically again reconcentrating on the balance sheet of the organization, which essentially means that one obviously has to have a crisis balance sheet, but also what is the way forward. So I think predominantly, if you ask me, Niraj, these are the 5 points. But before concluding, I'll just want to give you a practical example, because all what I spoke till now was theoretical, if you ask me. So my group, so obviously the group which I represent is into multiple businesses. And one of our entities in the group has been going under this crisis from last 3 years. And where the company which I am speaking about, it was supplying 80% of its revenue, or you can say its produce, to a subsidiary entity of this company in US. Now, unfortunately, the US business was not doing good, and it was highly levered. Now, obviously, since this company, the Indian company is the parent, it is extended a corporate guarantee. And there are a lot of challenges. There's a private equity invested also in this company. Given that it's been 3 to 4 years, the private equity also wants to exit, and they have certain clauses that if we wouldn't have given them an exit, they would have basically converted, and they would have got a majority shareholding in the company. So that's the background. Now this is all 3 years behind us. Fast forward to today. This company which I am speaking about, basically there is zero revenue to the subsidiary. Company's revenue has basically become 2x with zero billing to the subsidiary, We supply to the largest FMCG companies in India and also globally. The corporate guarantee overhang is gone. We retained the top management as well. There was no retention during this period in the company at all. The private equity has been given an exit. And of course, the group has supported in some of those initiatives. And then finally, today as we speak, because there is, you can say in the Hindu calendar, we are going through this Pitra Paksh. So we are in a final discussion for a new PE to come in this organization. So that's been the journey for this. So what we learned during this last 3 years in this, because this is something which we have as a group seen it personally evolve, is that all said and done, whatever strategies we can, as CFOs deploy, the critical or the mass element is people. I mean, it comes down to that. So if the group or the organization believes in its people, because those are the people who are there on the ground. If you believe in them, I think any turnaround is possible. Yes.
Very well said, Mayank. It's the people whom the organization invests, and they are the ones who turn around the organization. Very well summed it up. So our next question is to Mr. Vinayak. Mr. Vinayak, can you share some examples of turnaround strategy at your workplace or in your industry?
Thanks, Niraj. So I just give an example before going that I find it a different question altogether. So if you look at the current forums, people discuss more on CFO as a strategic partner, CFO is value creation for the company, CFO is growing the top line for the company. Well, currently we are talking about a crisis management, you know. The first question, why CFO has to be involved in the crisis management? Why can't be CEO, why can't be CEO, why can't be somebody else? The answer for this, I'm sure most of you people know. The CFO is the one who knows all the numbers or the situation of the company. He knows all the levers which needs to be tightened to make the company better. So if I say this, not be wrong. So CFOs are the one who really run the company from the behind. They will not be in the front running. So most of the time I keep telling at office, so running the company is like running a car. So if you look at the CEO, he's the one who is holding the accelerator. And if you look at the CFO, he's the one holding the brake. So holding the brake doesn't mean he reduces the speed of the company. So CEOs will run the revenue only thinking that's a CFO to control. So if the brake doesn't work properly, so somewhere you'll meet with an accident. So that's how the CFO's role in running an organization. Now coming back to crisis, I just take an example, which is a COVID-19 pandemic. You know, that was really crisis, not only for the one or the other companies, it's for the entire whole world. It's not only for the business, it's all for the whole humanity. So if you look at it, I work for a company called Arvind Fashions. We are basically handling the large brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, US Polo, Aero Flying Machine. So we have gone through a very tough time during COVID. So what happened? Probably certain sectors like healthcare or a few sectors which might be doing good. But most of the sectors really gone through a tough time. So it came to a standstill when Mr. Modi called for a lockdown. So entire country was, I would say, closed, you know. There's no business, there's no store opening. So no one is buying anything except the essentials. So there was a situation which I'm going to take as an example to explain what CFOs or a finance department can do for the company. So the entire thing what we had called business planning or the rolling forecast or the 5-year plan, everything go for a toss. There's no single rupee coming to the company. So all the stores were closed. No customers ready to pay you the money, and still you need to run the company. You need to pay the salary to your employees, you need to honor your commitment to the banks, and you need to ensure all of your vendors have been taken care. So there are situations where you get a call from your employees or the vendors saying that there is somebody in the hospital, can you please make the payment of 5 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees. Now here you can't take a decision either emotionally or logically. So this is really a crisis management which all of us seen in few years back. So what we really did, so I just take only 3-4 examples. So first, CFO in this situation has to take the leading role. He needs to lead by example. So you need to take the decision which others can follow. You should clearly say, yes, we are not going to spend any discretionary spend for next a number of months. Because we don't know when the situation is going to be better. We don't know, is it COVID for 1 year, is it for 3 years, is it for 5 years or 2 months. We have no clue. And we also don't know when the situation is going to ease out. So the key thing for a CFO to run this kind of a crisis is to lead by example. he need to say, okay, I'm not going to spend any more discretionary spend. So please, other business heads, CEOs, or the employees, please follow. And second thing, please take care of your people. People are the one who run the organization. So you should have a courtesy, or you should take a logical call to support your people, because there are a lot of employees who are really in a bad shape. That time you should ensure you support them morally, talk to their families, or give them all the support what you can do. So you gain their support and you gain their belief in the company. Third is that how do you really maintain your vendors, customers, wherever they need some support, please ensure you support them. Next is the cash flow. So whenever you're in a crisis, what is important is to look at your cash flow. It's not for today, it might be for a month, it might be for a year. You should always have a plan A, plan B, plan 3. We had multiple scenarios. We created something called BCP, which is called Business Continuity Plan. Because none of our planning or forecasting was working. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So what do you do with your business plan which was made 6 months back? So we kept a BCP, which was almost getting updated alternative days. And every day morning we used to have a call for the company to discuss what are the issues we are facing and what we are going to do to solve it. It was a combined call. We made a panel. It was a group of 3-4 people with the different areas who are going to take a call for the company to make it run. And fourth is you need to change your long-term strategy, because any situation like COVID comes, it puts you back for 2 years or 3 years. We don't know, So you need to change your long-term strategy. How do you really adjust according to the situation? And how do you really come up very strong post-crisis situation? And once this crisis is over, everything will not go away. So we end up having huge losses during COVID, and we end up raising the capital to make the company profitable. But what I wanted to say, if you really take it properly and learn from this crisis situation, and you drive from the front, it will be very beneficial for the company. And last but not the least, what I wanted to say for all the CFOs, the crisis will come. But what is important for everybody to know, how do you reduce the crisis? How do we plan for it? How do you ensure the impact on your business of any crisis coming in is minimum? I think we should always, it's nothing but a risk mitigation plan or the plan B in place. We should always have plan B in place or keep it in your pocket so while running the business. Thank you.
Can I add?
Yeah, please add.
Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me here. So I represent a manufacturing industry. Company name is WENDT India. We are one of the leading manufacturers of super abrasive grinding wheels, precision components, and special purpose grinding and honing machines. It's a high precision product. So I'm the CFO there. So as in the crisis, I think the fellow speaker was speaking, and COVID of course brings back a lot of memories, something of a pandemic which is once in a lifetime kind of scenario. The learnings what it gave during the COVID period is something which no scenario or no history can have those kind of learnings. To that extent, the learnings it taught us. So what we did as a manufacturing organization was, one is, of course, you have to do the lockdown. But as a financial man, how do you ensure the business continuity? You have to engage with your employees first, because they are the people who drive the core values. They bring in the value. You can replace machine, you can have material, but ultimately manpower is, or people is there which are something which is the core or the heart of any organization. Because that is the knowledge, all the IP knowledge is belonging to them. So how do you engage with them? How do you protect them? One is, if they are having any general issues, any problem in terms of COVID, in terms of firefighting in their family, somebody is sick, how to motivate them in terms of providing support, cash assistance. Then of course your supply chain, your customers, supply chain of course similarly for all the key suppliers, the strategic, the small, especially we have a lot of MSMEs, because a lot of our manufacturing is done by the MSME sector in and around where we are situated. So you have to engage with them, because these people don't have resources, they lack resources, and they are the ones who are going to get impacted very fast. Something like this happens, crisis situation. So how do you engage with them? How do you assure that you are there to back them and to protect them and to continue with them, so that they become your partners when the good times arrive? They will never forget this, and this will become an example for a long-lasting relationship. Thirdly, to the customer side, how do you ensure the business continuity? How do you show your preparedness? How do you engage with your customers? Okay, this is something, but we are in with it. We are with you. We will try to honor. We will try to supply whenever we get the permissions for lifting, for starting our manufacturing. Okay, and then of course, from the finance side, we have that force majeure. So many of our machines which we supply, there is a LD clause. So we had to immediately respond to, especially the PSU customers. So you have to respond to them. You have to tell them for the force majeure clause, because you will not be able to meet the timelines because of something which is pandemic happening. You will not be able to honor, so that they don't enforce the LD. Those are very critical. And of course, we as a management, we took salary cut voluntarily, some portion of it after some decision. We did take a salary cut for some months. As a voluntary exercise, it was not something which is forced. But since you don't have a revenue, you don't have a top line itself. So how do you continue your P&L and your cash flow? So with that, you have to take some steps. How you can maintain your business. Of course, those salary cuts were reversed when the situation was better and the company bounced back. And employees got back with a good increment also, and it was restored. These are some of the measures, and of course, as a cash planning, we used to do the daily cash planning, the scenario planning, optimistic, pessimistic, and a most plausible situation, how we will run. Bucket all your expenses into controllable and non-controllable. So something which is controllable, like travel and traveling, boarding, lodging, all these you can immediately, you can hive off. So how you can run with a minimum kind of cost. So planning that and communicating to all the stakeholders, it's something which is not forcibly done, but it is to protect as a business continuity. And when times come back, of course, we will bounce back much stronger. So these are some of the measures. And from the financial perspective, once the situation was improved and the lockdown was lifted, business started. Of course, from the financial aspect, the COVID material impact assessment on the receivables, on the inventory, on the fixed asset impairment. So all those notes, because when the auditors also were not able to come because of the physical traveling still not opened up. So the stock taking for the year end, when it happened, of course, later when the accounts finalization started. So we had to do through using the word of an expert, through third party auditor. And that too, since we have Big Four, they used to have a mobile they used the technology to rely on the work of the third auditor, the expert auditor, third party auditor, for this stock taking. So these are some of the things, but it makes you bounce back stronger. It gives you confidence that we are there. So the trust and the confidence generation is what I felt is something which it taught us, and which is something which is a lifelong experience. Thank you.
Yeah. So my takeaway from the last discussion is that during the tough times or during the crisis time, the couple of things which has to be kept in mind is that we need to lead by example. And whenever we are dealing with our team, we should have an empathy mindset with them. So with this thought, going to my next leader, Mr. Piyush. So the question is, what is the role financial forecasting as well as risk assessment and scenario planning play for the decision-making purposes during the crisis time?
Thank you, Niraj, and thank you all the co-panelists for their expert advices and their insights on this. So first of all, crisis. Why do we always see crisis as a danger or an event which, definitely crisis is a two-faced coin, which will have a impact, negative impact on the financials, but it will definitely give you avenues and opportunities to learn new things, to do new things in a different manner. You will always go back to the drawing board and you will see that, okay, how can I do different things? So, and now I will connect this with two words which we use these days, which is VUCA and BANI. So VUCA is what? Volatility, uncertainty and all. But now the demand of the world is we should move from VUCA and we to go to BANI. BANI means that we should be addressing the inconsistency in the organization and how we can come out of it. Okay. Now, how can we do that? So during any of the crises, not it's pandemic or whatever, so we can see there are a lot of financial crises also happened in the last couple of years. And in fact, we can see Russia attacking Ukraine was also a crisis because oil prices were impacted because of that. So what has happened? A lot of organizations went back, they sat on the table, they looked at their proposals, they looked at their current contracts, their open contracts, and they looked at it, okay, what can be my top line? Then they looked at their bottom line. Looking at the top line and bottom line, in mid-quarter also, they went back to the streets, they went to the external stakeholders and revised their projections. This is how financial forecast impacts. And I would tell you guys, I've seen that this has been taken very well, at least when our organization did that very positively by the stakeholders. So this is one thing. Now, if I have to talk about risk assessment, it's not only crisis, but whatever we do, we need to have a risk assessment of it. And doing a 360-degree risk assessment always helps us. So I will give you an example. I come from a service industry, very closely working for IT industry for a long time, where employees are the assets. Now, very often we might have to do some restructuring of some functions or some business units. When you do, and I have seen that when we are going and doing restructuring for some functions in the business unit, the cross-function team, we can expect, we did never expect it, but there was involuntary attritions coming in. And that was about to impact our functionalities and all those things. So this is like a risk assessment only. So whenever we take any decision, we should do a 360-degree risk assessment so that we can come out of it and we can at least have an estimate. And then the next is your planning, or what was the next point? Sorry, Niraj.
So the next point was
Role planning,
on the scenario planning.
Scenario planning is something which 90% of the time gets done once some event has already happened. Otherwise, we will never know. If some inconsistent event happen, after that we can do the scenario planning. So I would say financial projections, holding strong on your numbers, and your numbers being a data-driven number, it's very important. And being transparent to external and internal stakeholder really makes differences. So yeah, so lastly on this, these approaches are not only reactive, but we can use these approaches to have proactive approaches and can maintain the stability of the organization and profitability. Thank you.
So very well said, Piyush. So basically, anticipating the uncertainty well in advance does help during the crisis time, right? So my next question goes to the next panelist, is on with Prashant. That during the tough times or during the uncertainties, how do we groom and nurture our talent, which ultimately helps us in taking good decisions during that uncertain times?
Talents are playing important role during crisis. Say that some cases what's going to happen in IT or maybe we're in the real estate sector, our talents are very important, taking various decisions during crisis and ensure that they come out from the crisis. I'm working in Colliers as a CFO of the company. Yes, definitely IPC are our competitors in real estate sector. We don't have anything else apart from talents who should manage, who should run the business, and who should earn the money to the organization. Yes, we have as a Colliers, we have an open system. We are such a way that all employees can participate, they can give their views, how to come out during crisis and their views and opinions on that. This is one thing. And we are giving importance for learning, continuous learning, so that employee can learn new things, they can improve their quality of work, and also use new technology, as well as make a decision, analyzing all those things will help for come out from the crisis. That's what we're giving more importance for learning and development. Thirdly, we are giving importance for collaborations. We are working with various verticals, capital market, as a real estate sector, as a project management, various vertical. We are collaborating so that all employee work together and gaining the knowledge of other vertical. Also, like a finance team, I am also allowing people to work with other vertical. Might be valuation. Our CS are doing certain valuation for valuation teams, advisory like that. What's going to happen? They know the importance of business and also helping them to take the decision. Apart from that, we are giving importance employee to invent new things. Means inventing new things is important for us, and compared to competitors, yes, we'll be ahead of going forward. And making policies, we are doing continuously various policies. As I mentioned, IPCs are our competitor. Our policy is better than other IPCs, so that we can attract more talent to our organization, retain them, as well as motivating them. That's why we are managing the talents. Thirdly, certain policies impacting to stay longer period. Means say that we are doing certain policy, motivating them by giving higher incentives for achieving the business targets. Those we are managing talents such a way that retaining the talent, developing the talent continuous basis, and also encouraging them to go ahead of their achievements. All those things we are doing it so that we can sustain top line as well as bottom line of the company.
Thanks, Prashant, for your valuable thoughts. So the next question to my panelist is to Ms. Ramani. This is on the role of the CFO in managing short-term financials as well as long-term strategies during the crisis times. Thank you.
That's an important question, because during crisis time when firefighting is happening, how do CFOs and companies focus on their long-term strategies and goals? Because the first thing the CFOs have to do during crisis time is to secure the cash flows, defer all non-essential expenses or investments, keep hiring on hold till the time we figure out what's happening around the crisis. So all these things will have an impact on the company's long-term plans and initiatives. And it's extremely important that how do we balance these things and still make sure that there is minimal impact on the long-term mission and objectives of the company. So for that, CFOs should first start doing a risk assessment on all the impact areas. It can be like on employees, on clients, business, suppliers, what is the disruption that is going to happen because of this crisis, and how do we handle that. Based on that, there has to be a plan, a more dynamic plan, because see, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. We don't know how the crisis is going to end with, how long it might take to come out of this. So there should be an agile decision making and dynamic planning activity taken up by CFOs. And more importantly, this has to be executed with collaboration across all the departments in the organization. Especially during crisis times, we need to build the resilient culture in the organization so that the stakeholders don't lose hope and lose track of the long-term mission of the company. And many a times what happens is crisis also gives us new windows of opportunity. Like if I take our own example at TeamLease, in a month we hire about 20,000 employees because we are a staffing company. We have close to 3 lakh employees on rolls. And the biggest challenge that we face with our clients is interviewing the candidates, which takes a lot of time and efforts and cost. So before COVID, we have been pushing our clients to do the interviews digitally and select the candidates using technology solutions. There is always a pushback saying, no, it's not effective. I want to meet the candidates in person and all. But when COVID happened, everyone got used to the technology and the digital solutions. That has positively impacted our operations and productivity metrics on many areas. It might have impacted in the short run on revenue, growth rate and other things, but in the long run, there are many areas which gave us opportunity to implement technology solutions and newer solutions. So a balance is extremely important in terms of what are the short-term impacts, what are the areas, and at the same time, how do we manage with the upsides that are coming out of the crisis. Last but not the least, keeping a very transparent communication with the stakeholders is very important, because if you take employees, they don't know what's going to happen with their jobs or what's going to happen with the company. Is the company still going to complete that project X, project Y? Same with the investors and other stakeholders. So it's very important to also keep the communication open in terms of what the company is planning to do in the short term as well as in the long term. Yeah. Thank you.
Very well said, Ramani. Communication plays a critical role during these critical times. So thank you for your thoughts. My next question goes to Mr. Debnath. This is like, we touched upon this topic in the morning as well, that collaboration beyond finance nowadays is very critical, okay? So can you share some light with some examples on how should we collaborate inside and outside the organization during these critical times? Thank you.
Sure. So collaboration is in many folds in today's scenario. It starts from the internal, it's from employees, then it's with management, with other departments who are the co-worker, and also it goes down to the shop floor, to the last level of the people who are producing at a factory level. That is one. Again, on a top level to the management, to board, to investor. On the outside, the regulator, SEBI, stock exchange, customers, vendors, in many folds. So here it's the main theme of this is the communication. What just said on this, the communication has to be transparent, and there are multiple examples to be given. So in terms of business strategies, say I just give an internal sort of communication. So multiple organization is organizing a town hall. So town hall is a forum where the management is communicating their strategies, their growth plan, and how the business will ramp up, what is the sector, and all this. In terms of the external communication, in the same way, there is a vendor meet, there is a customer meet, there is a consortium meeting from the lenders, there is a investor meet, and as well as the various external filings. And for the external, in the internal, there are multiple ways of communicating, to the circular, to notice, to issues the communication newsletters, and so on. On the other side, how do we communicate to the external people? So after every quarterly result, there must be an earning call, which will give the confidence to the investor. What is the order book? How quarter on quarter I'll perform? Then press release, and obviously the annual report, quarterly financials, which is getting released in the newspapers, and various other publications in the media and communications. See, the management, some of the management members is participating in a event, is speaking about something, there is some release is happening. So there is a media communication, press release, all these things are happening. So in a combined way, so both which is very, very essential, and which will bring the transparency. And if we communicate more, communicate more in terms of the growth, strategy, planning, etc., which will gain the confidence. So when, in terms of a simple example of recruitment, when the people from the Premier Institute who are the fresher passed out, when they will be interested for the organization, say when the campus interview happens for ICAI or for the business school, when those people would be interested, so they can see, they can research on about the company, and they can understand the companies is doing this, they can get an idea. Also in terms of when you go for a new lender, new financer, a new investor, they will also get the confidence in a similar manner. The vendors to get a better terms, obviously it will indirectly helping to improve our cash flow management. So if I have a confidence on the market, vendor will give a better credit terms, customer will lift it, I can negotiate with the customer in different terms. So all these things collectively will give a very huge amount of mileage to the company to communicate, and to communicate both internally and externally, transparency, and communicate professionally, which is more important. We need to talk about the strategy, planning, and the growth story of the company. Thank you.
Thank you, Debnath, for your valuable thoughts. My next question goes to Mr. Mukesh. So, the lessons which we have learned as a CFO from the past uncertainties, how are they going to help us in the future uncertainties? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think, in my view, we have to understand that this will be a VUCA world. Uncertainty is the only certainty, and change is the only constant. So, a lot of learnings, whatever we have taken, this world is going to be like this, COVID, or there is a war, supply chain crisis, commodity price inflation, China +1, and maybe logistics issue, Red Sea crisis. We hear so many things. These things are going to be there. And these will become more, what should I say, instead of something happening in 5 years, 10 years, it will be happening very frequently, maybe much, much faster. So we as a CFO or a visionary, we have to have a contingency plan for overcoming these kind of, whatever I should say, the crisis. We should have a plan. How do we overcome the crisis? Always have a plan B in place. If this happens, what I have to do or what we have to resort. I will give some examples. we do manufacture machines. Now, when we had a COVID time, we had a China +1, and with the Indian government Make in India, and of course the supply chain crisis and Russia war, something you can't get from the Russia, or you had this commodity price going up. So what we did in that time to maintain the continuity of the supplies, we talked with our vendors, the critical vendors, engaged with them, and ensured that we fix a annual price for the maintaining the continuity and giving our projections what would be the volume we'll require and how do we ensure the continuity. Because, and machines being a capex item, it has a long lead time, especially the control systems, the CNC control systems, the spindles, the ball screws, the camera vision systems. So fixing even your casting, your machining suppliers, ensuring that they have the capacity in place, give them a forecast. This is what we would like to have for the year, and we want your readiness. If you have any bottlenecks, please come to us, ask any help. But don't come with suddenly a surprise no at the end of the period or at the end of the quarter we will not be able to deliver. So wherever they need money or the funds for making their capex make their capacity more, how to ensure that they add on to the capacity based on your projections. So that is very, very critical as far as the RM continuity is concerned. And COVID and these kind of crises give you a lesson to digitize or automate your mundane processes. So before that, many things we were doing manually. So what happened after the COVID, of course, thanks to COVID for that, it gave a new perspective. We have automated accounts payable, we have automated our some of the critical processes, at least the three-way. So the AP process takes care of all accounting, the three-way matching between PO invoice and the GRN, and then we have also implemented the vendor portal, whereby the vendor, the full transparency is there. He can see the RFQ being generated, and then he can give a whatever the quote he has given, based on that the PO being generated, and then based on the ASN he can supply the material, and he can see what stage his money is stuck, whether the invoice has been processed and whether it has been passed for given to accounts, whether it has been passed for payment. So all this transparency. So how do you ensure the transparency to all your stakeholders? Because that is something which is paramount in this today's world. So this is something we have to optimize all the resources. We have to keep things, communication, as some of the, one of the panel members also said, how do you communicate to your stakeholders? How do you engage them? Of course, many things we used to do manually. Now with this COVID time, of course, we also had an option of doing things on the, through online platform. We had now implemented machine learning, AI tools in our machines, which gives a real time and an insight into the what could go wrong, and we can diagnose the machine through distance, through online. So this kind of capabilities building and these kind of things, which really throw a good opportunity. As we know, the adversity times, whatever makes us uncomfortable, it's the biggest opportunity for growth. This is what I strongly believe. So these are some of the practical examples how you can leverage technology, how can you understand through a crisis, and we have to always keep in mind what the value we can create, because ultimately as leadership, how do you create value to your end stakeholders, whether it's a customer, whether it's your employee, whether it's your supplier, any stakeholder, investor. So that is very important. So everything has to have a value. So you cannot go with the traditional costing method. What we look at is the total cost of ownership. Ultimately what it gives. Maybe the cost may not be the only parameter. Ultimately what other parameters other than cost, the qualitative, the ease of doing business, those kind of insights are also very critical. So these are some of the thoughts from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh, and thank you to all my fellow panelists for enlightening us all on this particular topic. I would like to conclude by saying that we as CFOs need to have a holistic view. We need to look 360 degree on the crisis situation and then find a solution. Thank you. I would not like to hold people now because we all are looking for a break. Thank you for listening patiently, and thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Niraj. I request all the panelists to please stay back on the stage. And to do the honors, I would like to call Mr. Sunil on the dais.